Okay, guys, continuing with part two. Now, still within the nucleus, and this gets a little confusing, is a small dense region called the nucleolus. So within the nucleus is the nucleolus, which is this purple thing. So it's the site where DNA is concentrated when it was making ribosomal RNA. So we'll learn about ribosomes in a bit, but this is where the assembly of ribosomes begins, in the nucleolus. So next, outside of the nucleus, now we're in the cytoplasm, is something called the endoplasmic reticulum, and it's a lot easier to say ER for short. So this is a membrane system found in all eukaryotic cells. So it's where lipids are made. Remember, we learned about lipids. Those are the fatty components of cells, along with proteins and other materials that are to be exported from the cell. So things that are going to leave the cytoplasm get made in the ER. So here's a picture of it on the right. We'll get into this in a little bit, but if the purple thing here on the right is the nucleus, and we've got those holes that are the nuclear pores, and then these membrane sacs are called the rough ER, and it's rough because it's dotted with these ribosomes. And then we'll talk about the smooth ER later. So here's a picture, two models of cells that you may want to refer to. It helps to visualize these things. On the bottom left here, we've got the purple nucleus with the nucleolus in the center, and we've got the rough ER just on the outside of the nucleus. So the rough ER, it's involved in protein synthesis. That means making proteins, and there's a lot of them in cells that produce large amount of proteins for export. Now, only proteins that are going to be secreted leave, like insulin, for instance, or something that gets sent outside the cell, that will be made here. And it's rough because ribosomes are found on the surface. And the smooth ER, they just look like these tubes of sacs. They don't have ribosomes, so they're not involved in protein synthesis. They're involved in making lipids and detoxification of drugs. And the Golgi. The Golgi appears as a squashed stack of membranes, and proteins produced from the rough ER then go to the Golgi. So proteins start being made for secretion or for exiting the cell in the rough ER, and then they go to the Golgi. And the Golgi modifies, sorts, and packages proteins and other materials from the ER for storage in the cell or for secretion outside the cell. So you can think of the Golgi as like the FedEx or the UPS of the cell. It kind of sorts and ships out proteins. The next is the mitochondria, sometimes the mighty mitochondria. It is called the powerhouse of the cell. So you can think of it like a power plant. It is found in nearly all eukaryotic cells, and it converts chemical energy stored in food, so the food we eat, into compounds that are more convenient for the cell to use. The easier way to say that is it makes energy. So that's why I called it the power plant. So mitochondria, again, they're enclosed by two membranes, an outer membrane and an inner membrane. The inner membrane is folded up inside the organelle. So if you look at this picture on the right, you see all these folds here. That's the inner membrane. Mitochondria contain their own DNA, and they're found in both animal and plant cells. Lysosomes, you can think of the lysosomes like the recycling center of the plant. These are small organoids filled with digestive enzymes. They break down lipids, carbohydrates, and proteins, all those macromolecules that we learned about last unit, into small molecules that can be used by the rest of the cell. That's why I said it's like a recycling plant. So it breaks down proteins and also other organelles that have outlived their usefulness and redirects them for a new purpose.